right, awesome. Thank you everyone for showing up to probably what will be the best panel for today. We've got a stacked lineup. We don't have a ton of time, so I'm going to jump right into introductions to get to know the panelists here. Maybe we'll start with Matt.
Introduction? Sure. Hello, I'm Mert. I run Helios, not Helium, and that's an RPC company. And I also shitpost on the internet.
I'm Connor. Temporal is Solana research and development.
Zano, CTO and co-founder of Jito. We build MEV infrastructure.
Nitesh, CEO and co-founder of DFlow. We build a Solana DEX aggregator.
All right, awesome. And I'm Sam, partner at Big Brain Holdings. So let me start with maybe an easy one. So MEV extraction is often controversial, but I think it's debatable how beneficial it could also be to the ecosystem, especially on how we see Solana today. So how do you think Solana should treat MEV as an inevitability, an unavoidable risk, or something that should really be a core part of the economic design of the actual protocol itself? I'll start with Matt.
I will hand it off to Zano.
Thanks. I don't think MEV is like good or bad. I think it's just a thing that exists. And there are negative externalities where, for example, like sandwiching is obviously not good, but you have to assume that stuff like that's going to happen if there's economic incentive to do it. So it's on the responsibility of like all the guys up here on stage and developers on Solana to build the system and infra such that it's not economically viable to do so.
Yeah, I mean, fundamentally, it's just going to happen regardless. Blockchains are incentive machines. The entire thing just runs on incentives, right? All the consensus mechanisms, staking, it's all about incentives. And so if there's money to be made, people will try to make it. And so it's going to happen. I mean, the alternative is running an AWS server and calling it an L2 and saying, I promise we won't front run you. But like, that's not super inspiring. So if there's some decentralization going on, there's going to be MEV. And if that's the case, then, there's obviously Solana is doing a few things to, let's say, minimize the externalities. So like speeding up block times, MCP, which I don't think Zano is a big fan of, but like there's like other solutions being tried. So like it'll never go away. But and also like the way Ethereum does it today is something like, well, it's going to be extracted anyway, so let's just democratize it right away. Which it's also an answer. Like it's probably not a bad one actually, assuming there's competition and margins go down and all this stuff. But like we can make it not worse if you try, right? Like I think Ghost published a report yesterday that the top 3 biggest sandwichers get like 85% of their stake from like Marinade, for example. So that's not great. So I think there's certainly a lot of levers to pull still.
I'll comment quickly on the sort of like ETH comp to Solana with regards to MEV. So ETH's MEV system, for lack of a better word, is kind of cooked in my opinion. And there are a lot of like I agree with Zeno, agree with Mert as well. Like the goal should be to minimize, but it will always exist. I think the one thing I'll add to what they said, so not overlapping too much with them, is you reduce block times, you get rid of a lot of negative externalities. Like this is ETH's problem with 12 seconds, and looks like they might be moving in the right direction soon. Hopefully, we'll see. But the goal should always be IBRL.
Yeah, I think MEV, it will always exist. Like MEV is taking the elevator instead of the stairs, or like TSA pre-check. So trying to figure out how to solve it is just a waste of time.
Right. So I think the next question I think was about how do we actually mitigate this, and you guys touched on a couple points. Jito shut down the mempool over a year ago, but now MEV still exists. We have private mempools. We have all of the stuff going on in the backroom deals with validators directly and whatnot. What do you guys think about that? And again, like, can you elaborate more on what else we could do? You also mentioned democratizing MEV. Like, what are kind of initiatives that are happening in that space as well?
Yeah, it was a pretty controversial decision. It was last year, I think March. We were at the height of making money for validators and ourselves. But everyone was getting sandwiched. Any slippage you set, you were basically getting slipped. So we didn't want to be responsible for that. I think I'll leak a little bit of alpha, just a little bit. I think the future is encrypted mempools. That's it.
Oh wow, that's a big alpha leak. Well, I mean, it needs to be holistic. So I think, especially around the time where Jito had to shut down the mempool, I was like roughly one of the only people who was kind of against that.
I
Somehow,
was against it too, by the way.
yeah,
at the
okay,
time,
okay.
yeah.
Well, we have the same look, so it makes sense. Science. But like the apps didn't even try to do anything at that time. And like, you can kind of say something like, well, maybe they just weren't aware. But like we had been talking about it for a while at that point. And so like, yeah, you can just shut down the mempool, I guess. But like then it's not gonna go away. Private people are gonna come up and then, I mean, there's still sandwiching on Solana today, even after that. It needs to be full stack solution. So like the apps, and now they're starting to do this more, like DFlow has conditional liquidity. I think Jupiter has like some MEV protect mode as well. Like a few of these guys are starting to add this. But like the sandwiches are basically from shitcoiners that don't care about 50% slippage because they care about a 5,000x, right? So they kind of know the game they're playing there. But fundamentally it needs to be full stack, and like everything from the app to the stake pools, which I just mentioned. I think that's a crazy problem, by the way, that like the top 3 sandwichers literally get all their stake from an LST pool on Solana. Okay. And but then also on the core level, obviously, like Nitesh said, just got to go faster, right? I know Justin Drake doesn't think this is possible because math papers, but I think going faster does obviously reduce the amount of MEV you can extract.
Yeah, like what Merge said, a lot of the marinated steak is going to sandwichers. But the thing is, like, those sandwichers, like, they're like blatantly sandwiching on their leader slots. They're not really trying to hide it. But like, there's some other, like the SFDP, they give a lot of steak to sandwichers. But those sandwichers, they hide it pretty well. So I think there could be some better enforcement at the SFDP. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to add what Mert was saying, I was on a panel with Nitesh, and I like the way you framed it. Basically, shitcoiners, yeah, they set high slippage because the latency between creating a transaction and it landing on chain, that price can move against you. So you're basically like, oh, I just want to market buy this. That's what the high slippage intent really is. But what's happening is they want to market buy, but really what's happening, it's like a artificial price movement against them because they get front ran. So it's not like real. It's not the real market force acting there where the price moves against them. So that's pretty shitty. I think people just want to market buy and then they get slipped all the way.
Yeah, without sort of like leaking too much alpha, I think the way that like the life cycle of a transaction and when users trade and swap, I think this is like sort of like legacy tech, like 21 stuff that we still do today. So there's a lot of stuff that we're working on at DFlow that other teams are working on as well that I think will make like very big improvements to MEV. And this is, in my opinion, not like a long-term concern given the next 20 minutes of this panel is probably summarized by like just make everything faster and you solve a lot of things. So focus on the right stuff.
Leak the alpha, huh?
Mert.
Just a little.
Just a little. All right, I'll leak alpha just a little bit. It's, a lot of people are thinking a lot about intents. So keep your eye. And all right, I'll say one more thing here, which is like intents have sort of like been a thing in the past, and people have been like intents are cooked, and intents did get cooked, and I think intents are coming back in some form. So, yeah, keep your eyes peeled for that.
You guys mentioned marinate a couple times and how a lot of the stake that's enabling sandwiching is coming from them. They're obviously incentivized to enable something like that, but a lot of discussion around mitigating MEV comes from like social alignment and punishing those types of validators. Why do you think that's not happening effectively, or do you think even that is like an optimal way to prevent MEV?
It's a pretty hard problem. like Connor was saying, people are getting really crafty with sibling. If you catch them, they go spin up another validator, get more stake, and do it again. So it's kind of like a whack-a-mole problem. I think, yeah, it's a political game, and you should try to solve some of this stuff at the social layer, but you're not going to solve all of it at the social layer. You can buy time at the social layer, and you can do technical things to buy some time, which is kind of what dropping the mempool is meant to do. But a lot of time has passed, and dark pools have spun up again, basically. So I think you really need like cryptographic technical solutions to this stuff and economic incentives that align users, searchers, and validators.
Yep. I mean, yeah, that's correct. I mean, vibes aren't going to cut it. Anatoly yelled at me on Twitter, so I'm not going to make this $5 million from this trade. Then it's just not going to happen. I mean, roughly the only thing social you can do is, message people that you think are good faith. Like, I think Marinade is good faith. So, like, that's why I think it's okay to, like, talk to them about this, because it's like, they probably don't want that to happen. And so, but like, then there's other people who are from certain parts of the world that are very private and very mercenary, and like, you can't shame the shameless, right? So it's gotta be IBRL.
I have a question for you, Zano, actually. Encrypted mempools were talked a lot about on Ethereum, but they never took off. What about Solana makes you think they'll work there?
Because their engineers suck.
Did I have engineers?
I have a badass C engineer right now figuring it out.
Good answer.
On the other side of the MEV pipeline, what do you guys think about the concentration of order flow right now? Is it really just because we've got a monopolization across like the app space right now, and as the space matures and starts to diversify, that'll also obviously start to trend that way as well? Or what are your opinions there?
I'll kick this one off. So it's first worth noting kind of like what the constellation of like actors looks like here. Like there are probably 5 to 10 major Solana applications where like users crowd, like it's very power law distributed in terms of where users originate their order flow. I think this is related to your previous question of like how do you actually detect this stuff? These are all super trustless systems, and eventually the transaction does have to make it to a validator and land on chain. So I think like you can look at where like the order flow originates, but like the applications on Solana care deeply about Solana. They want to see Solana succeed. I think the core of the problem is not like if you look at the life cycle of orders, it's not at the beginning. It's sort of like where it ends, where validators, especially as Mert was saying, like sort of around the world, anonymous, like not subject to regulatory things, like they have this ability to and privilege to like order transactions and sandwich and whatnot. So um, I'm not super worried about like the where the bottleneck is on order flow origination or anything like that. I think the problem is closer to the network and consensus layers of Solana, and I guess encrypted mempool seem to be like a big in vogue thing this panel, but we'll see what fixes it.
All right. Maybe this is a question to Jito or to you guys. What do you guys think about the kind of concentration that Jito kind of holds within the MEV space in Solana today?
I like Jito because they airdrop me a lot of money, and Zano's a good DJ.
So yeah, I think there is some risk with any team or company. We're in a very powerful position, which is like good and bad. Like as an example, when I think it was when Melania dropped her token or when Trump dropped his token, our block engine had some bug that didn't surface till we got real load, and basically our system went down. And then Solana was just kind of like naked, and Jito kind of acts as a shield around Solana. And then you couldn't really land on Solana because we were down. So that's like good and bad. It means, we're helping Solana, but at the same time, it means you're dependent on these American engineers working American hours. They have families, and it's like 8 of us working on this thing. So I think the future is, I can't say it, but I can tell
Why
you,
not?
we're trying to solve this problem. We're working actively on that. The concentration of power.
Is this related to encryption?
It's all within the same vortex.
Ooh, okay. Well, I think I'm not concerned about it just because Solana is like not DEI. It's definitely a meritocracy, and the reason why Jito is that dominant is because they do the work the best. You can compete with them if you want, but good luck. So, like, I think it's not like they're good because they were handed the keys to a program within Solana Core. I wonder if people will get that reference. But it's because they actually built something that without them, like the network, the transaction sending pipeline stuff just doesn't work. I know because people blame me for it. And I'm like, I can't do anything about this. So
Yeah, when I'm basically customer service support for landing transactions. I'm
Are
sure
you
Mert-
Mdroid?
Say what?
Mdroid?
No.
All right, sweet. All right, the next one is hot takes. So I'm just gonna get one spicy take from each of you. If it's not spicy enough, I might keep asking you. All right. So let's
Does it have
start
to
with
be about Solana or just any?
it.
hot take?
Well, one Solana at least, and then you can do whatever else you want as well. So start from Tesh.
Oh, starting for me. Okay, cool. I'm very bullish the Solana L1. I think there are a lot of like SVM forks and stuff, and I think maybe those exist in the world. But to me, the winner of like decentralized blockchains is going to be something that's decentralized, and there's probably like a power law rule here in terms of Solana L1 taking the majority of like pretty much all market share that's like relevant in terms of metrics. I don't know if that's spicy enough, but
MCP sucks.
I don't know. I feel like people always talk about like internet capital markets. Like I don't even know what that means, or like I feel like meme coins and sending money is like is it. It's lit.
Depressing. This is not what I wanted to get out of you
What
guys.
you said? What'd you say about meme coins? It's good.
Yeah, it's lit.
Can you elaborate on why MCP sucks?
It's complicated, and then the weaving it's kind of up in the air, like how you do the actual weaving. I think the proposal right now is that basically consensus orders transactions by priority fees. So that means if you ever want to make a change to how things are ordered, you have to roll out a consensus breaking change for that specific implementation.
What about encrypted MCP?
What? So I think it's just a complicated thing. You can effectively accomplish a lot of the benefits by just shortening block times.
And then Connor, you said meme coins are good, or what was the hot take there?
That like people are like searching for this killer UK use case, but we already have it. It's meme coins.
Like, what do you think the end game is for meme coins? We just tokenize everything, and this just scales infinitely.
Memes are funny. Like I don't know.
All right, Matt, you go. Your turn.
Oh, like a hot take on anything? I don't think it's that hot out, to be honest. I think people are kind of have the American mind virus or some shit. It's not that hot. Just wear some linen pants. Pasta is like super overrated as well in terms of food. In terms of maybe crypto hot take, I mean, I kind of just say them as I think of them on the internet.
I think Miami is better than Dubai.
I agree.
We'll go out tonight and then we'll. I mean, yeah, probably. Okay, never mind. I'm not going to get into this. But for crypto, hot take would be that everybody should use Helios at all times for everything. Cool.
All right.
It's not very hot because
Helios is better than 00.
Huh?
You're better than 00.
We're not. What do you mean?
All right, I'm gonna change. I'm gonna change it up. All right, so all right, let's do something interesting. So Ethereum right now is kind of going through this midlife crisis. Now they want to scale the L1. it kind of just collapses all the arguments they've been saying to the Solana ecosystem. What do you guys think of that? Do you think there's a possibility that Ethereum actually does recover from here and is able to scale the L1, and that's somehow might be competing with Solana?
I hope they do. Sorry, Mert, I'll cut in real quick. I hope they do. It'd be really good for Solana to have like competition on that because competition is good. So I personally, I don't know if they will. It takes a lot of work. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I give actually open up the token conference, and the first panel was Ethereum's existential crisis, and they put me on it for some reason, and that's what they asked. And I mean, I think it's good. Competition is good. I don't think they'll be competitive though. I think like the plan is something like 100xing or 1000xing or something, limits over 4 years, 4 or 5 years, and like they have greatly underestimated how much work that actually takes, and the amount of politics that they have internally, where like, even on the panel, they were actually disagreeing about it. They were like, oh, but I want to run it on my toaster. And it's like, well, you probably can't run it on a toaster if you're going to actually get to 10K TPS or something. I think like the great philosopher Anatoly Yakovenko, he who chases two rabbits catches neither. And I think that's roughly what's happening. That being said, like if I were them, I would scale the L1, because there's like you just can't get around the physics bottlenecks. Like you just have to do that. But now that you're doing it so late in the game, there's Solana, but there's not just Solana. There's Sui. There's potentially Monad. All the L2s are competing with all the L1s. Doesn't matter what the gas token is. So I don't know. Best of luck, I guess, but it's not going to be. I don't think they're going to be able to. They'll probably need like some very large institutional adoption, RWA stables or something, and that'll probably have to be their edge.
I'll always have some love for Ethereum. I just missed like 2020. I made my first couple bucks on this dynamic set dollar thing. It was like a rebase. I didn't know what it was doing, but I just kept getting more dollars out of this thing. And everything was so quirky and clunky and shit was slow, and I loved it. But it wasn't realistic. It was a cool science experiment. I think like similar to what Mert said, they're basically optimizing for third world infrastructure. And if you want to run a global financial system like the NASDAQ, you need to expect proper operators to spend proper money running servers, and it's a legit operation. We don't need some like 12-year-old in, I don't know, Albania running a node.
All right.
Yeah, I was going to say, like the whole running a node at home thing is like a huge technical misnomer, because, well, first of all, 95% of blocks on Ethereum are produced by two gigantic companies. Okay, just two companies, and and even Vitalik himself in his own blog post, which, by the way, the last triangle he drew ended up becoming the entire roadmap, the blockchain trilemma, which is not a real thing. But then his other blog post, which is Endgame, and he basically says, well, all blockchains have the same endgame, and that block production will be done by specialized entities because, like, there's a lot of money to be made there. So it'll probably end up looking more like, specialized operators, some of the larger companies, quants, MMs, and whatnot. The node at home is useful only for verification. Okay, it's so that when you're running the node and you did a transaction or something has happened, you don't have to actually rely on what the other people tell you. You can just trustlessly verify it yourself. So it's all about verification. But Solana actually has a home verification client coming now by the guys at Overclock, called Mithril, which is like a stripped down version of the validator, let's say, and you'll be able to actually just like do best of both on one chain regardless.
All right, awesome. Probably going to be the last question. So, respectively, for what you guys are doing at your companies, what does it mean to build MEV aware infra? Whether it's routing, data, validator level logic, how are you helping users directly or apps to optimize execution?
So landing a transaction on Solana was very hard, apparently, which is kind of like a weird thing to say. It's a weird problem to have to just land a transaction on a chain. I think it's gotten better with the new scheduler, but our whole job is really just users. What do they want to do? They want to land a transaction. They want to land it fast, and they don't want to get screwed over by sandwichers. So we want to optimize for landing transactions fast, but also protecting users that send through us. And that's accomplished through high speed infrastructure and privacy tech.
The single thing that we are focused on, sort of at the core of what we do, is making the market structure fair for takers and makers on chain. Right now, the market structure on Solana is heavily biased towards takers, and this is just inherent in the nature of market making and market taking. But this has like incredibly bad side effects for DeFi on Solana for it to be like unfairly biased towards takers. So our goal and like my whole thesis, like super long term, is if you make the market structure fair for takers and makers, you just see beautiful effects like, secondary, tertiary, um, happen throughout Solana DeFi. Makers add a good amount of liquidity. Takers are able to correct prices and facilitate like very fast, efficient price discovery. This benefits like users, and if users are having a great experience with DeFi on chain, then they use more of it. More users come, and everything goes up. So that's like the singular thing we're focused on.
Something we do is we use TerraSwitch. So we co-locate with the majority of stake and try and get on the same rack as the Jito block engine to IBRL.
Yeah, I mean, as the RPC, we kind of get blamed for everything. But so what that looks like for the users, well, one, educating them, because people just don't know that there's roughly just 2 transaction pipelines on Solana. Well, maybe now there's like 4 with certain ports being opened up at all times in return for tokens.
What's that?
And so like the RPC just extends the protocol, like it just directly works with how the validator client already works. And then so there's also Jito, and so it really depends on what you want to do. Like landing transactions is hard in the context of you want guarantees for like, if I pay this much, it'll land in this time, which is very important, and that's what Jito helps with a lot. There are some other use cases for like app developers, because our users aren't just quants or everybody from wallets to like just random for fun games and stuff like this, where they're okay with like a higher confirmation time due to like the inefficiencies of Solana. So one, it's about education. 2 is like we always also work with, roughly everybody at Core to like tune the RPC. So like back in the day, when Pump, I don't know if people remember, there was like a time where literally no transactions would land right when Pump started getting popular. And that was because it was actually a bunch of different bugs. And this is before Stakeway QoS.
Or
Yeah, okay. It was around OR. And certain RPC providers that are not Solana native would spam the living shit out of the network with bot farms, which would just destroy the chain for everybody. And so as an RPC provider, you got to like, even if you're aware of these things, you got to work with Core to get them mitigated so that the entire ecosystem can actually function. And so I guess education and just working with Core is what we do, at least.
Yeah, and I want to add, I feel like there's been kind of a negative backdrop here because we've been talking about MEV and all the negative things, but I want to add that these are good problems to have. If Solana wasn't popular or used, then we wouldn't even be up here talking about any of this stuff. We'd be talking about all sorts of anything else. So it's a really good problem to have. MEV is a function of user activity. So, validators made $1 billion last year in MEV, and that makes it more attractive to run nodes on Solana. So it's good for everyone.
it's all Rev.
Actually, one last question on that, Rev. So, like, do you guys believe that MEV is a core component to how you value Solana and the Solana token?
I think I do. I think institutions do. It's
Sorry, the question is Rev a valid method of valuing like Solana? Is that the question? Yeah, I think so. I don't really see a strong reason it wouldn't be.
yeah. If validators made $10 billion next year in MEV, then I expect Solana price to like 5x at least. So, not financial advice.
All right, awesome. Well, thanks everyone so much, and thanks to the panelists for coming here and chatting about MEV and everything good about the respective companies. So, again, thanks for your time. Cheers, everyone.